Managing your mindset is essential to communicate effectively in our digital world. In this session, you will learn steps to achieve this, including the basics of mindset, how to cultivate intentional mindfulness, and alignment tools to prepare for any conversation. As the Chief Habit Science of Yoga Brain Coaching, our Speak helps our clients shift their mindsets, organize vision, improve habits, and reduce decision-making to create efficiency, productivity, and time for fun. She holds a doctorate in neuroscience and psychology, a postdoctorate in education, and certifications in coaching, yoga, mindset, and Ayurveda. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Tamsin Astor.
Thank you. I held my 3-year-old son, Jamie, on my left hip. My 5-year-old son, energetic, stood next to me with a wheelie suitcase in his backpack. My belly was just beginning to swell with my 3rd pregnancy. Max and I had just taken our shoes off, ready to jump in the bin and go through security at London Heathrow Airport. It was 2009. The security agent came up to me. "Madam," they call you madam, not ma'am in England, "your son needs to remove his shoes." "Oh, please, sir," I said. "They're just the little leather booties. Can we do the chemical wipe instead?" "No, madam, the shoes must come off." I knew what was about to happen. I took a deep breath. We'd been standing in line for 90 minutes. Tense, sweaty, July morning. People ready to get through security to beaches, sunshine, beer. "Madam, your son's shoes must come off." I took a deep breath. I pulled off the little navy blue booties with green dinosaurs, put my son Jamie down, and as I expected, he had the most massive, almighty toddler meltdown. People looked on, people looked away with embarrassment, shame. I quickly started to move through. Max and I gathered up the DVD player, the snacks, and that's when I heard it. Humph! It came from an older man, bitter, stone-faced. He looked like life had been hard. He turned to look at me. "You shouldn't be here if you can't control him." I picked up my son, put him on my hip, rolled my shoulders back, all 5'10", and stepped forward. "You have no idea why my son reacted that way," sticking my finger in his chest. "He spent the last 11 months of his life fighting. He has cancer. Every time he's cut, every time somebody tries to take his shoes off, he thinks he's about to be poked, cut open, and held down. He even bathes with a shirt on so he doesn't have to see the scars. How dare you?" The man stood back. His contempt remained. A security guard rushed over. I picked up my son, my 5-year-old. We gathered our things, and we walked away. I realized 3 things at that moment. The first, I felt shame. I'd let my fear, my reptilian brain, take over, not my smart, logical prefrontal cortex. I'd flooded my unborn child with cortisol and adrenaline. Secondly, I felt proud, even if in a somewhat inept manner, I had stood up and advocated for my son's needs, his hidden wounds. Third, I knew I needed to find a better way. I needed to learn how to manage my mind, not to control my emotions, but to pause, notice, and choose, so that I could be a different kind of leader in this world. See, mindset management, it's not a tool. Mindset management is a survival skill. In the world we live in, where cancel is part of the culture, where compassion is harder than grace, learning to manage your mindset is the one thing that will allow you to be the kind of leader that you want to be in the world. So welcome. Thank you for joining me today as we explore how to manage your mindset in a digital world. So today we're going to look at the human behind the artificial intelligence. Technology is a tool, or actually an intelligence. And we're going to look at mindset as a lens and how it can shape your communication. Secondly, we're going to look at mindfulness, the best tool to enhance communication. And third, we're going to look at integrity and how that relates to the MDRT whole person concept, which I'm sure you are all very familiar with. And fourthly, we're going to look at communication and how dynamic it is, and the connection between three kinds of conversational structures and Dr. Dennis Jaffe's psychology of wealth. So let's start by defining communication. Communication is a process by which information is exchanged through a common system of symbols, signs, or behaviors. And here it is in 3 other languages. Maybe I'll try and read them. Communication in Japanese, sanchar in Hindi, and comunicación. Maybe if you're Spanish rather than, right? You say it with a th, right? Let's define mindset. Mindset is a collection of thoughts, beliefs that shape your attitude, habits, and disposition. Here it is in 3 languages: Korean, Portuguese, and Chinese. And the reason I have these languages up here is that I recognize that we have a very global audience here. And this is not being translated. So I want to make you feel welcome. That's part of mindset, right? Is acknowledging who is in the room. So your mindset shapes your communication. We're going to start with the origins of mindset, your family, your social cultural context, and your personal experience. If any of you went to see Inky or Fawcett this morning, they talked very clearly about their own personal experience, right? And how their mindset was a choice. They had particular experiences in their childhood, and they chose to act in particularly different ways. The second thing we're going to look at is fixed versus growth. And the third is choice and neurosculpting, and how we can take personal responsibility to shape our mindset. So ultimately, your mindset is like a lens, right? It shapes your perspective. It influences the symbols, the signs, and the behaviors that you choose to communicate. And if you think about conscious leaders, we intentionally cultivate that growth mindset, right? We recognize how your own mental frameworks will influence not only your communication, but the energy and trust that you build with others, right? And when you are mindful of how your digital communication, like that beep that we just heard, can sometimes lack context, right? You can take extra steps to ensure clarity, to ensure empathy, and really put connection at the forefront. So let's look at the 3 origins of mindset: family, social cultural, and personal experience. So family. Finish your plate versus stop eating when you finished or when you're full. I grew up in 1980s London. My parents were war babies. They grew up with rationing. So finish your plate was an oft-heard refrain in the house that I grew up in. I learned budgeting because from the age of 13, my parents gave me my allowance quarterly, so that I had to learn, before it became really important, how to budget for the quarter. When my kids were little, I gave them 3 jars: save, donate, and spend. So they learned how to play with their money and figure it out. Maybe some of you had to earn your money by doing chores. So our mindset about health, about education, about wealth are often shaped by our family. Think about the digital world that we live in and the ease and overexposure we have to information. Think about how you were raised. How is conflict handled in your home? Maybe conflict was avoided. Maybe it was handled passively. Now it's easy to ghost people, right? Fear of missing out. I'm one of the last generations that grew up without technology. Can't imagine living without it. I always have my phone on in case my children, who are all young adults, might reach out to me, right? Sociocultural. And there we have it in 3 languages too. Our sociocultural factors shape our mindset. In Sweden, paternity leave has been around for 50 years. In America, we don't even have maternity leave, right? The FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, is not maternity leave. I grew up in England, where 10% of people have health insurance, right? Where contraception is free and medications are a fixed price. America, where I live, 90% of people have health insurance, right? So these factors shape how we communicate about our health, communicate and make decisions about insurance and services. Cultural context will also affect this, right? So if you live in a collectivist society, such as Korea or Japan or China, harmony is prioritized, right? If you live in an individualistic culture like the United States or UK, directness is prioritized. And then let's look at personal. The third origin of your mindset is your personal experience. Have you experienced pregnancy? Have you experienced loss, buried somebody you love? Have you graduated college? Have you served your society? Have you served your country, right? Inky and Fawcett beautifully articulated this again, right? Their own experiences and how they decided to make choices. So in conscious leadership, when we think about these things, we're recognizing that we understand these 3 aspects: our family, our sociocultural context, and our personal experience. And this allows us to be more empathetic leaders. By embracing that full array of mindfulness and mindset, we can really lead with greater authority and foster deep connections. The second key aspect of mindset is growth versus fixed. And there it is written underneath. Fixed mindset. This is the idea that we believe the skills we have are innate, that nothing we can do will change. There's a tendency to avoid struggles and get stuck in status quo. If you have the growth mindset, you believe that you can change with practice, that you can find a solution through. When I was a child, my mother used to call me Tigger from Winnie the Pooh because I would bounce into a room with so much energy, and that growth mindset, which feels to be very much embodied by the Tigger energy, has this: if I work harder, if I work smarter, I can get through, I can find a solution. When I would walk into a room with my shoulders rolled, slunk, she'd say, "Are you feeling a little Eeyore today?" Eeyore was the gloomy, shoulders rolled in, head down donkey from Winnie the Pooh. That's learned helplessness. And again, we can cultivate learned helplessness. That's the key here, is that mindset is trainable. In the 1960s, Marty Seligman started doing a whole load of really interesting research which showed that our brains are malleable. Beyond childhood, we have the power to train and change the way our brains work. And this research is continued by Carol Dweck and Angela Duckworth. Grit, resiliency, flow. Decades of research has shown that Buddhists, like myself, realize that we have the power to train our brains. We have the power to change our natural tendency. So in summary, mindset is trainable. We can shift from fixed to growth. We can shape the neural pathways. The origins of our mindset do not have to be the final determinant of our lived experience. So in conscious leadership, we really think about embracing this mindset to foster innovation, to foster resilience. And when we recognize that it's trainable, we empower ourselves and the teams that we lead. I moved houses in 2018 to move into a school district that was better for my children. I was living in Cleveland, Ohio. There was a beautiful rose bush in the front garden when I moved in. The first year, the roses did not grow very well. And after speaking to a green thumb friend of mine, I discovered that the reason they were not growing well was that I was not pruning the roses. I needed to make the choice about where the energy was flowing in that rose bush and not let it flow through all the roses. I had to cut particular stems so that the roses would bloom. This is the same approach to the way our brains work. If we are intentional about the focus and energy that we allow, if we are intentional about what we choose to think about, where we put our time, where we put our attention, our life and our mindset will change. So suffering doesn't create hopelessness. It's suffering that we think we can't control. So anyone, again, who's a Buddhist will remember the first line. Suffering is inevitable. Pain, is inevitable. Suffering is a choice, right? We get to choose. So you have to take this choice to control it. If you've heard the Hebbian concept of what fires together, wires together, you know that what you choose to focus on is what will inevitably be wired in your frontal cortex, right? So the place where people now start to question is our DNA, right? Our genetics. We know that we have a genetic tendency towards, for example, being depressed or having heart disease. But the interesting research done by people like Dr. Bruce Lepton, who is the big father of epigenetics, has shown that adopted children have the diseases of their adoptive family, not of their biological family, which I find really fascinating, right? So it's the power of environment. So you might have your mindset shaped by your family, your social cultural context, or your personal history, but none of this matters. You can choose. You have the power to change, right? You have the responsibility to change or create a new response. So mindset is like a pair of glasses, right? Like my rainbow glasses, because one of my children is queer, so I like to wear these to support them. It filters how we see the world. It filters how we respond to the world. I love this Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. What this suggests is that we believe what we think. It's in your hands, right? It's in your hands, and this can change and impact your communication. So if you think you can, if you want to believe that you can, if you want to take that choice back into your hands, if you want to limit the impact of negative mindset or negative genetics, mindfulness is one of the best tools that you can use to learn that. Mindfulness means being present. It means being aware of your thoughts. It means noticing your feelings. It helps manage emotion, reduce stress, lower your blood pressure, and increase compassion. And my favorite is that it actually lengthens the telomeres at the end of your DNA. So you don't need Botox. The ultimate biohack is meditation, right? It's actually anti-aging. It literally changes your DNA. So research has started to really build in this area. Mindful people are 20% more likely to make rational financial decisions. In the realm of conscious leadership, mindfulness isn't just a personal tool. It's a leadership superpower. It allows us to create a space of calm, a space of clarity, compassion. And really, it enhances our well-being, our being of wellness, our pool of well, right? So when I talk about leaders, I'm defining people who have impact on others. So you could be a leader in your home. You could be a leader in your work. You could be a leader in your community. It's not just the CEOs at the top of the pile. The cost of distraction. On a daily basis, an average person processes 74 gigabytes of information. Now, if you're like me and you read that, you think, well, what does that actually mean? It's equal to reading 2 books, watching 16 movies, or comprehending 2 words for every waking second. That means we are in a state of constant multitasking and overwhelmed. Alan Watts wrote about this in the 1950s. You could even go back to ancient philosophers who worried about this. When the printing press was created, there was a fear that information would be disseminated at such a rate that we couldn't keep up. This is why mindfulness and other success habits are so essential to strengthening your communication, because it can take up to 25 minutes to reorient back after you've been distracted. And think about the level of distraction that we deal with on a daily basis. Mindfulness helps reduce your distractions, and it trains your attention. And one of the things that's fascinating about attention is Nancy Klein has written about attention and says that the quality of your thinking depends on the attention that you receive. The quality of your thinking depends on the attention that you receive. So if you want to improve your communication, give full attention to the person you're communicating with, right? So how do you practice giving full attention? One of the best ways to do that is to practice mindfulness. And mindfulness is also brilliant for reducing your distractions. For me, the best definition of mindfulness is the Viktor Frankl quote. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. In the choice we make, in our response, lies our growth and our freedom. So between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. The choice we make, the response we make, creates freedom and growth. Inky Johnson gave that example when he went to college, right? Yesterday, he said, I was invited out to go to a sorority party, but instead he chose to go back and sleep because he'd never had a bed before, but also he recognized that going to a sorority party wasn't going to get him to where he wanted to go in life, right? So mindfulness builds that space between stimulus and response, whether the stimulus is external, a dog barking, or internal, a negative thought. It helps you cultivate the power to choose so you can communicate better, whether you're digital or in person. So I would like to invite us all to practice meditation. So if you have anything on your lap, would you mind putting it on the floor? Would you put your feet so that your ankles are under your knees and put your hands in your lap? If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. If not, drop your gaze so that you're not looking forward. Start by relaxing the muscles of your face, the space between the eyebrows, the muscles along the jawline, your tongue in your mouth. Soften the palms of your hands. Let your shoulders roll down your back. And start to elongate your inhales and exhales. Slowly let your mind settle on your breath as you inhale and exhale. And as thoughts pop into your head, label them thinking and let them go. Coming back to the inhale and the exhale. As your mind wanders off, gently rope it back into your body. Inhale. And exhale. Slowly start to bring some awareness back to your breathing. Back to your body in this room. And perhaps wriggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes. So my first meditation teacher called that making friends with my mind. Do you have a tendency to go to the past, what I did or didn't do, to the future, what needs to be done, the to-do lists? Are you sitting there thinking, oh, why did I come to this session? I should have gone and got a cup of coffee, right? Are you looking forward to what's happening in the rest of the day, right? You can think of this tool as a way of refilling your whole person cup, right? Mindfulness alone, though, isn't enough. You have to practice it and then take it out in the world and notice. When you practice mindfulness, what do you notice that changes? For me, my reactivity changes. I have a longer fuse. For me, it became vital when I had 3 young children. I got up, locked myself in the bathroom every morning, and sat for 20 minutes. That, for me, was my inoculation. So when you take charge of the whole person, it becomes easier to show up in your business with integrity. So what does it mean to be in integrity? Integrity is key for communication. Integrity comes from the word integer, which means whole. It means indivisible. The whole concept, the whole person concept in MDRT is the core philosophy. As Harry, who was the one who invited me here today and who I met 5 years ago in Athens, Greece. MDRT has Kool-Aid, right? The whole person philosophy, it's your foundation. And it affects all aspects of your life. Are you living a robust, healthy lifestyle? Are you in alignment with your lifestyle? You could take these as journaling questions to reflect on, right? What are your habits like? What does robust look like for you personally? It's going to look different for each of you. What about your relationships? Are they strong and fulfilling? Are you cultivating relationships that are spiritual, grounded, honest, respectful? Are you working with coaches and therapists, people to support you? What about your intellectual development? Are you learning new skills, right? We know as we age, we need to practice that. My father took up painting at 79 to strengthen his brain. I took up the guitar at 45, having never played a string instrument. What about your career and success growth? Are you working with coaches, mentors? Are you taking programs? Are you working and supporting your team and your employees? And what about your spiritual and personal values? Are you supporting your community? Are you practicing your faith? Are you working in your community to grow it, right? Are you operating from a place of wholeness, from a place of alignment in your different roles, right? We embody roles, parents, employers, friends. What about your thoughts, your words, and your actions? Are they in alignment? People can pick up on that when they're not, right? That sense of inner integrity. What about boundaries? Are you cultivating healthy boundaries? Are you showing up online in the same way that you show up in person? People can tell that, particularly when you use lots of filters, right? Back to meditation again. We don't need the Botox if we meditate every day, right? Practicing wholeness and focused attention creates this powerful feedback loop, right? Which can enhance how you show up online. So when we cultivate this conscious leadership, this integrity, this wholeness, it goes hand in hand. When we work on aligning our inner values with our external actions, we create a foundation of trust and authority. This wholeness will strengthen our personal well-being and helps to elevate the quality of our relationships, the quality of our communication online, right? And when we practice integrity, we are staying true to the whole person concept. We live in a dynamic world of constant change. So communication is dynamic. I have 3 young adults who are always showing me what words I am using completely wrong and how to use them in a modern way. So we are living in a world where technology is actually evolving faster than our ability to adapt. Right? Look at the way that AI is evolving. It's an intelligence. The patterns that it can find. So, a few weeks ago, AI figured out that 3 weeks before somebody has a heart attack, every person has one similar symptom, which is that their feet swell, right? That's something that doctors haven't noticed before. Breast cancer, they've made that connection, right? So technology is evolving at a faster pace. So we need to figure out how to move with that, but work from the inside out. Have any of you ever read a text while you've been on a Zoom call? Yay, I'm not the only one. Thank you for raising your hands, right? Is anybody on their phone right now? Yes. Is anybody texting right now? Are they listening to me? Right? We all live in this world where we get distracted, right? I was recently diagnosed with ADHD as an adult woman. And I now know that that's why I love being around lots of other humans, particularly for things like going to the gym and working out, right? Body doubling is really helpful for me. When somebody else is doing something with me, it's really helpful. But I also know that I have dopamine regulation issues. My brain doesn't process dopamine in the same way. I need more dopamine than a regular neurotypical person. So if I'm doing an online course, if it's pre-recorded, I watch it at double speed, right? If I'm on a live Zoom, I always have a notepad so that I can write scribbles down so that my attention is kept, right? Some people love being in the online world because they can manage these sorts of variations Other people find it really stressful because they have 100 or 1,000 people staring at them, and we're not used to having that many people staring at us. So in the world that we're living in, we have a lot of flexibility and options. The issue really is how we choose to use it. Another thing that I've noticed and have learned as somebody with an adult diagnosis of ADHD is that I absorb the emotions of others, whether it's in person or online. So cultivating space and time alone to let those emotions discharge is vital, right? So digital communication is a double-edged sword. It can be really, really helpful for many of us, but can also be very stressful. So when we think about this dynamic awareness of communication, we want to look at how this connects with the evolution of wealth management, because this is why you're all here, right? Building relationships is not just about showing up. It's about being present. It's about being engaged, whether you are in person or online. And when we are stepping into roles as conscious leaders, we want to honor these individual differences. We want to find ways to stay present. We want to understand our own needs and create spaces where everybody feels safe and welcome. So when I was putting this talk together, I had a long conversation with Harry, and I noticed this concept of conversational structure, which he helped me tie together with the 3 levels of wealth that Dr. Dennis Jaffe, a professor, an organizational consultant, and a family therapist articulated, which I'm sure many of you in this room are familiar with. The 3 levels of conversation are transactional, promotional, and relational. And the 3 levels of communication are much more nuanced when we're communicating online. So we're humans first, right? We are social beings. We're used to understanding these nuances. So when we bring together in an online space, we have to be a little bit more careful of this. So the first piece I want to draw a connection between is transactional conversations and Wealth 1.0. Transactional conversations are exchanges of information. A calendar invite for 2 p.m., I'll bring the coffee, you bring the mugs. It can be easy to misinterpret tone. It can be easy to misunderstand emotion. So it's really important here to add things like emojis or high fives, or if you're online, bringing hands together in hearts, fist bumps. In Wealth 1.0, advisors offer rational, professional advice. So the exchange is transactional. A client gives money, who, let's face it, for many years was a straight white male. The advisor invests in the stock market. The client might say, I need $30,000 a year for my son for college. My first financial advisor, Charlie, was like this. We had these sorts of conversations. The second is Wealth 2.0. So these are promotional conversations. So these are conversations where one viewpoint is being promoted over another. So it might be, I want Chinese, I want Italian. There's a better wine list at this restaurant versus this. In Wealth 2.0, advisors might promote products like a 529 plan. Charlie, my very British, very sweet first advisor that my family had hooked me up with, he and I had these kinds of conversations. The third kind of conversational structure is relational. This is the kind of conversation that digs deep into communication around your mindset, your value. It's about transforming your connection. So these focus on long-term relations. And for me, that sounds to me really what MDRT is about, right? It's about cultivating these long-term, trust-based relationships. What do you want your children to understand about money? What values do you want to translate? How is money discussed in your home? What is the sort of moral and ethical viewpoint of money, right? So it's about creating a much stronger trust-based relationship. According to research by the marketing company Epsilon, 89% of people are more likely to do business with a financial institution that offers personalized experience. And 85% of people take communication style and frequency of communication into account when deciding whether to retain services. So communicating in a digital environment requires emotional intelligence, deliberate engagement, and using all of these tools at your disposal. Charlie, my first financial advisor, and I did not have those kinds of conversations. We did not get to those deep relational conversations. So as conscious leaders, we aim to move beyond just the merely transactional or the promotional and dive into the richness of the relational conversation. So by truly understanding our clients' stories, their values, their experiences, you can create deeper, trust-based relationships that go beyond just the financial transaction. So when we think about communication as a dance, we're looking at alignment, we're looking at integrity, mindfulness, presence. I fired my first advisor, Charlie, because he and I couldn't get to that relational level. Maybe that's because I've lived in the US for over 20 years as a Brit. I hired my next advisor, Billy, because he focused on long-term, meaningful connections. He really leans into those deep relational conversations, and he's now having them with my 21-year-old son. Take a moment now and think about the last 5 phone calls or Zooms you've had. What kind of conversational structure were you having? Were they promotional? Were they transactional? Or were you in a space of relational building? We need to have all of those kinds of conversations. You know, technology is evolving at this incredibly fast rate, and we need to step into and be conscious leaders, but we need to make sure that we prioritize those relation-building conversations so that we can deeply connect with the people around us. So, to wrap up, mindset is a lens, and it shapes your communication. Understanding where it comes from and how it shapes your communication is important. Whether you're more of a Tigger, whether you've got that growth mindset, or Eeyore, more of that fixed mindset, you can change. One of the best tools for that is mindfulness. Mindfulness is simple, but not easy. It's an incredibly powerful tool, which when learned and practiced, could have massive impact. For example, an ROI of $3,000 a year per employee, according to the Harvard Business Review. By being present and intentional, mindfulness allows you to connect more deeply. It allows you to connect more deeply with yourself, with others, and with the artificial intelligence, which mine is called Zebediah, by the way, because I thought I'd have to give it a fun name. So mindfulness also has been shown to reduce burnout by up to 25% by improving client retention. So like Anais Nin said, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. So it's behooving to us to do the work. Integrity is essential in communication. It's about wholeness in all aspects of our lives. Your role as a parent, your role as an employer, your role as an employee. It's about integrity with your thoughts, your words, your actions. Is your tone in alignment with your body language? Communication is dynamic. It's a continuous process of adjusting, adapting, whether transactional, like Wealth 1.0, promotional, like Wealth 2.0, or relational. Artificial intelligence is transforming our world. And if we use it correctly, can be a real place of democratization. But we as humans are full of mess. We're full of pain. We're full of joy. We're full of beauty. And you are in the relationship business. And communicating digitally requires you to embrace that humanness and stay connected at a deeper level. So just at that moment in the airport taught me the importance of managing my own mindset and communicating with empathy. We all have the opportunity to transform our challenges into growth. Even the most difficult situations can be handled with integrity and compassion. So let's take these lessons forward and build stronger connections in the end, I found my way to a cruising altitude where my reptilian brain and my prefrontal cortex could shake hands and call a truce, because it's about balance, right? So let's keep navigating this journey with humor, with grace, and maybe just a touch of sass. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tamsin. Very comprehensive, insightful, and engaging presentation. I would like to open the floor at this moment for any questions. If you have any question or comments, please approach the microphone in the aisle and limit yourself to one question. Kindly speak clearly, giving us your name and where you are from.
Hi, Brandon Green from Houston, Texas. What are some resources we can leverage to enhance our mindfulness and meditation skills?
So one of the best is classic mindfulness. One that I like to do is a see, hear, and feel. So you can sit, see in, see out. So see out would be, what are things that you see in your environment? I like to do it at the beginning of every single engagement I have, every time I get on a Zoom call with somebody, with the letting go of things, right? And stepping into this community space. So putting your phones down, everybody in the space, doing this work, right? And the tool that I like to use is something called Me Search, right? Where everybody gets a chance to do it and then report about what they've noticed about it, because it's the lived experience that really creates the shift. And it takes 12 minutes a day to start rewiring your brain. So it doesn't actually take that much. There are a lot of great apps online that you can use. I like Insight Timer because it has a lot of options and a lot of community. If it can get a little bit complicated, so the one that I like to give to people who are beginners is Calm. And what's great about Calm is it just gives you one meditation every morning, which if you are trying to reduce the barrier to entry, which when you are creating a new habit, you want to make it as easy as possible. When you open it and there's only one option, it's much easier. Is that helpful? Yeah, great.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for the presentation. I'm sorry, but this may take a minute and a half to land. Yes, I'm from Demetrio, from Mexico. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
And
too.
I'm very fond of psychology and what it does. I actually have a hypothesis that maybe psychology is some sort of chemistry where you learn the chemical reactions that it produces on others to understand how they behave. And in that way, I think you may have done it on the first half, where you said that mindset is about welcoming, and the way you welcome people from all across the globe is having different languages in your presentation. And maybe, just maybe, you activated something in our minds that kept us with you. And in that way, I think that as somebody who is going to help and serve others in this market, we have to find a way to activate the person's mind to connect with you. And you did it in a very simple way, which actually surprised me. So I wanted to ask, how did you study us to take that simple decision of connecting or engaging with us, and how do we do it in such a digital world when most of the times you may not see the person that's in front of you?
Thank you for the question. So the first is I'm a big traveler, and I believe that travel breeds tolerance. I started taking one of my children got on an international flight when he was 3 weeks old. So I believe that travel creates tolerance because you see different situations. My oldest, who's 21, when he was 13, I took him to Japan, and it was the first time as a blonde, blue-eyed, Midwest American boy that he'd ever been a minority anywhere, and had been somewhere where he looked different from everybody and was not understood, and people looked at him as being the odd one out. So for me, putting myself in situations where I feel uncomfortable and where I don't know the rules and I have to figure it out, that's personally how I do it and how I've raised my children. The way I do it online is to be quite clear about my boundaries, which is when you come into my space, I'm a big believer in psychological safety. And the way I do that is asking you to turn your camera on and turn off other things. I ask you to be really present in the room and I use language along the lines of a cloak of confidentiality. When I lead groups, and I do a lot of groups and breakout rooms, I make it very clear that when people are sharing in spaces, that what's happening in that space is only happening in that space. And when they come back into the main room, that consent to share is really clear about whether or not you've got consent. So for me, it's about connection. One of the best ways to do that is using some of the choreographies that I got trained in as a conscious facilitator. So an example that I love is to do paired interviews, where I get people to collect around an idea like a high point story in their organization. When did we do really well together as a team? What is a story of how we succeeded in our organization? Getting people into the breakout rooms in pairs and having those conversations creates deep vulnerability and connection. Because when we are comfortable being vulnerable and authentic, we build deep connections with each other. Is that useful?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. Mark Begley from Atchison, Kansas.
Hi.
I've been curious for about last hour, how's your son doing?
Oh, thank you. He's 19, and he's just finished traveling in Kenya and Costa Rica for his gap year, and he's going to be starting at Emerson, studying in Boston, studying journalism. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And he's 6'2", so he's taller than me as well.
Hi, Tasmin. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm Cheryl Dixon from Jamaica, land of reggae, sunshine, Bob Marley, and Usain Bolt. All right, so my question is for you. I'm a career veteran in the field, but I have a problem with balancing home with work and keeping a positive mental attitude towards everything. So how can you give me some suggestions to go with that?
Sure. So one of the things that I absolutely love is what I call the bookends of the day. So starting and ending your day on your own terms, doing something that fills your cup. So one of the best ways to do that, as I said, is meditation. It's very regulating for the nervous system. Another thing that's really helpful is journaling about what looks good, what's good. I actually have the word gratitude and expect to be delighted tattooed on my arm to remind me, and that's in my dad's writing. But looking for what's working, right? Our brains are wired for looking for what is not working, where we're not succeeding, where we're failing. And when we can train our brains to look for what is good, what is positive, that's really helpful. I start the day with 3 M's. I move my body because that creates a sense of like endorphins and dopamine, and you can dance, right? I walk my dog, and I live in Brooklyn, and all the dogs run off, sniff each other, and have fun. Move, meditate, and journal. I call it mind dump. I get everything out of my head and onto the page, because when we are in that kind of subjective swirl, we can get stuck in sort of perseverative thinking and looking at what's wrong. If we can get it out on the page and look at it and create a level of objectivity and read through it, it can be really helpful. And then if you can connect with others, right? When Dr. Vivek Murthy stepped down as the Surgeon General of the United States in January, he gave 3 things in his prescription to the United States. 1, purpose. So when you're doing your daily habits, connecting it to your bigger purpose, what lights you up in the world? 2, community. Go into your community. We've spent so much time online in the last 5 to 10 years. If you can step into your community and random acts of kindness. When I was standing getting coffee today, this woman in front of me bought the coffee for the guy behind him. Okay. He was like, what do you mean? What are you doing? She goes, I'm buying you a coffee as an act of kindness. He's like, why? You don't know me. And she goes, that's not the point. Because it's going to make me feel good and you feel good, right? Okay. So doing things in your community, right? Okay. And then the 3rd is service, right? So stepping into, right? Like savor what we've got going on here, right? Doing things that are of service to the community at whole. But finding things that you love, right? Okay. Like I have a 1980s playlist, an exercise playlist that has like Pointer Sisters and Gloria. Yeah. And I listen to that every morning and I dance. And it makes me feel good, right?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.